Next question is for Shelli Landon. Russia has attempted and has meddled in our elections, hacked personal information, and is in a cyber war with the United States. How should we combat this?
I believe that we have got to work with elements of what is going on in the UN. If you go to my website, landonforcongress.com, you will see a link on my Bills and Resolutions tab where it goes to revokerealid.com. On there, I show where the SDGs UN resolution that was constructed in Brazil in 1992 for 9/11 pushed forth this idea about the real ID. When that was put into the hands of the World Bank, they hired Morph USA. That was bought by Islam to Morph Ademia. That went to Safran in France, and that went to Papillon, the Russian military surveillance division for biometrics configuration and RFID. Then that was sold to the United Arab Emirates. So I think some of the problems we're facing are not actually located only in the United States. That's why when I go to Washington, you need someone who doesn't have a learning curve in front of them, already knows how to deal with the politicians and the internationals, because some of the problems you're facing here in Oklahoma are not just United States problems. Unfortunately, they have a heavier umbrella over them from those kind of entities interfering with your liberties, your economy, and all that affects you here. So I think we've got to be wise enough to deal not only on the scale of Washington, D.C., local federal government and regional government here, but you've got to have some cunning understanding of what's going on internationally in the UN and diplomatic training.
Thank you. Next is David Hill.
So we have a huge problem in the world in that we have all these nations, Russia, China, that would love to disrupt and confuse our free election system. And we have to be vigilant. We have to work hard so that doesn't happen. I've got, in addition to my three great sons who have served at West Point and Princeton and the Army, I've got three strong daughters, and one of them does cyber technology at the NASDAQ. And we have the capabilities, we have the people here, we have the technology to be the leader in the world so that our technology and our people can be safe, our bank accounts can be safe, and our votes can be safe. But we've got to put an emphasis on that. We have to put an emphasis on technology, training in technology, and being that leader. We have to understand that these other nations, they're not our friend. We have to understand that we have to be vigilant against them. But these are problems that we can solve. They're not going to go away. It doesn't matter how much you threaten China or Russia, they're going to continue to try to disrupt this free nation. So we've got to work hard against that.
All right, thank you, David. Next is Janet Barresi.
Well, Russia tried to interfere with our election. We all know that. We also know that they're trying to do that again as we go into this election cycle. So it's critical that we have the best in technology to go ahead and combat this. I know things are already going on the federal level in order to combat against this. But the Russian government is, again, just that. They are communists, and they are looking at world domination. So as they proceed forward to get more power and to bring more countries under their control, the United States have to focus on developing our relationship with our strong allies in going against them. This is not only in cybersecurity, but also in our trade. The United States is strong and right now is energy independent, and the Russians are trying to interfere with that. We must maintain our energy independence. We must maintain free trade with our allies and do everything we can to marginalize the effect of, again, another communist country.
All right, thank you. Next is Michael Ballard.
Yes, it's not just Russia that attempted to interfere in our elections. It's also communist China, North Korea, all of our Iran countries in the Middle East. So it's not just Russia. But I do agree that we do need to drastically increase our spending on cybersecurity, not only to protect our elections, but to stop computer hacks and everything that goes on every day from our enemies from across the world. I mean, and but as far as I know, you know, not only the Russians, but any of other of our enemies, they don't want Republicans. They weren't behind Trump. They weren't behind the Republicans that was running for the House and for the Senate. Everyone knows, if you pay attention to our enemies, they are pushing for Democrats because they know that they can get away with murder from the Democrats. For example, they knew Hillary Clinton's past. They knew that she gave them 20% of our uranium to Putin. Putin is not a good guy, but that's another story. But they didn't change any of the actual vote count in our elections. They just, played their little games. But I agree, we should drastically increase the spending on our cybersecurity.
All right, thank you, Michael. Next is Miles Rahimi.
Thanks, Josh. That's a great question. I feel like in order to combat Russia's meddling in our elections, we need to strengthen our NATO allies and our presence. We obviously shouldn't be footing the bill majority of what we've been doing. But in my time in the Navy, I saw too many of my shipmates taken away from their families to serve overseas, and some of them even losing their life in service to our country. We shouldn't be deploying our military except to defend our nation. Acting as the world's police and has it's left us with a world that can't police itself, and it's time for that to change.
Okay, thank you. Next is Charles Pringle.
Josh, did I miss a question? I know they're talking about Russia here, and but what was the last question?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. Russia has attempted and has meddled in our elections, hacked personal information, and is in a cyber war with the United States. How should we combat this?
Well, the Russians have been doing this ever since World War II, and they tried to steal the atomic bomb. As a matter of fact, they did steal it because Stalin knew in advance that we had dropped the atomic bomb and that it had worked. Now, the thing is, if you're talking about for the election of 2016, it was Hillary Clinton who was trying to steal and bringing in all of these things and giving them to the FBI and starting all of these problems. It wasn't the Russians, because they can't change one of our votes. And that's basically all I can say about it. It was just the Democrats, and they're going to do it again this year.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And last on this question is Jake Merrick.
All right. I believe that we have to constantly remember that as America goes, so goes the world. We are the greatest country in the world. We are the leader. We set the pace for the rest of the world. There's a reason why Russia is interested in our elections. There's a reason why China and the Middle East are interested in our elections. It's because of our influence and our domination. I do agree we need to invest in our cybersecurity. I believe that we are the leaders there as well. We need to maintain that place. But I firmly stand with our president in his no-nonsense approach in dealing in his foreign policy, in the way he deals with nations that attempt to threaten the greatest country in the world. We don't have to back down. We don't have to cower. We stand boldly. If we have to sanction, if we have to increase tariffs, we'll do what needs to be done to ensure they are in check, because we are the leaders of the world and we will stay that way.